Good evening, manifestors. If you're tired of looking at your account, at your life, at the same old problems and thinking, why can't I change this? Even after visualizing, affirming, and trying to do everything right, this video is going to make a lot of sense for you. Because the problem isn't that manifestation doesn't work. The problem is trying to create something new while you're still stuck in your current reality. In this video, I'm going to show you what detachment really means, why it's the missing piece for most people, and how to apply it practically, without falling into that empty talk of just trust. I know this because I lived this exact mistake. I spent a long time stuck with a tight budget, a stuck reality, thinking that wanting it badly enough, visualizing every day, and keeping focus was enough. But deep down, I kept thinking and reacting like someone stuck in lack. And that kept everything locked. It was only when I understood this detail that things really started to change. You can't create a new reality while you're still emotionally obeying the old one. And look, if you want to understand manifestation this way, without the fluff, subscribe to the channel. 3 videos a week breaking this down the way it actually works. Now come with me and I'll show you exactly where this mistake happens. You know that feeling when you're doing everything you're supposed to do to change your life, but when you stop to look at reality, it seems like nothing moved? You visualize, you affirm, you try to keep positive thoughts, you even take action. But the account stays tight, the job stays the same, the problems keep showing up. And then comes that thought that hurts. Why doesn't it work for me? I know exactly how this feels because I also spent years in this loop, doing everything right, applying the techniques, reading about manifestation, but looking at the balance and seeing that nothing had really changed, and worse, thinking the problem was me, that I didn't have enough faith, that I was doing it wrong. But it wasn't about doing more, and it wasn't about having more faith. The problem was somewhere else. Because most people who try to manifest something, they are, yes, trying to change their life. But without realizing it, they stay completely stuck in their current reality. They look at what's happening, react to what they see, sense the weight of the present scenario, and use all of that as proof of what's possible or not. And then they stay in this pattern. Wake up, look at reality, feel the lack, react to the lack, validate the lack, and repeat every day. You even try to think differently, but you keep feeling and deciding based on what already exists. The problem isn't lack of effort, it's not lack of will, and it's not that manifestation doesn't work. The problem is there's a mechanism error happening, and it's sabotaging everything without you realizing it. And the worst part? It's an error that seems so natural, so obvious, that we don't even imagine it's there. What's the error? It's this. The person even tries to change. They visualize, affirm, even act differently. But deep down, they keep consulting current reality all the time to see if it's working. They wake up, check the account, see it's in the red, and think, it still hasn't changed. They spend the day trying to keep focus, but at night, before sleeping, they check again and think, is this even working? They see someone who succeeded and think, why did it work for them and not for me? And then they think they're just checking, that it's normal to track the process. But that's not what's happening. What they're actually doing is looking for proof in current reality that the new reality has already arrived. And since current reality hasn't changed yet, they feel it's not working. React to that. Reinforce exactly what they want to change. I did this for years without realizing it. I'd wake up, check the account, feel the tightness, spend the day trying to think positive. But at night, I'd check again and feel the same tightness. And that became the cycle. Look, feel lack, react to lack, validate lack. I thought it was just monitoring, thought it was normal to want to see results. But the problem is that every time you consult reality to see if it's changed, you reinforce that it still controls you. You use the present as the measure of what's possible and stay stuck in that. And the worst part, this seems so natural that almost nobody realizes they're doing it. But then comes the question, why do we do this? Why does current reality have so much power over us? Because the brain treats current reality as if it were the final truth. It looks at what's happening now and assumes that's proof of what's possible. But here's the problem. What you see today isn't the final truth. It's just the reflection of decisions, beliefs, and patterns you had before. It's like driving looking only at the rearview mirror. You're seeing where you've already been and thinking that tells you where you're going. It took me a long time to understand this. I'd look at the account in the red and think, this is what I'm capable of generating. Look at the stuck job and think, this is what I deserve. Look at the present scenario and treat it as a sentence. But the present isn't a sentence. The present is a result. Result of how you thought before, how you felt before, how you decided before. And when you keep reacting to the present as if it were the truth, you just reinforce the pattern that generated that present. And then the cycle repeats. And the worst part, this seems so logical that almost nobody notices. Because the present is right there in front of you, concrete, visible. So the brain assumes it's the strongest truth. But often what you see today is just delay. And when I understood this, I got angry. Angry that I'd wasted so much time reacting to a delayed reflection as if it were the inevitable future. So if the problem is this, if current reality isn't proof of what's possible, but just a reflection of what already was, what's the real way out? And look, you just understood that the present is just a delayed reflection, that you're reacting to the rearview mirror thinking it's the road ahead. But in practice, how do you get out of this? How do you really stop validating the wrong reality day to day? I spent years studying this until I understood the complete mechanism. And when I broke it all down, all the mental patterns that kept me financially stuck, the whole practical process of detaching without turning into self-deception, I put it in an ebook so it wouldn't just stay in my head. It's the material I use to this day when I feel myself falling into the old pattern of consulting reality to look for proof. And it's what goes beyond what a video can cover. It shows you exactly how to apply this in your life, step by step, without the fluff. If you want to go deeper, the link is in the description or in the pinned comment. Now back to it. What's the real way out when we understand that the present isn't a sentence? The way out is detaching from current reality. But not the way most people think. It's not pretending the problem doesn't exist. It's not ignoring the account in the red. It's not acting like everything's fine. Detaching is stopping obeying current reality. I remember the day this clicked in my head. I was looking at the statement, that same shit as always. And instead of going into automatic despair, I realized I'm letting this number decide how I feel. I'm asking reality for permission to feel different. And that's when I got it. The problem wasn't reality having power. It was me consulting it all the time to know if I could already change my state. Because reality keeps existing. The present scenario is still there, but it becomes context, not command. You look at reality, but stop treating it as a sentence. Stop asking it for permission to feel, decide, or act differently. And when you do this, you stop validating the wrong reality. Stop reinforcing the pattern that generated that reality. And then reality starts to have less weight over you. Not because it disappeared, but because you stopped giving it authority. But how does this work in practice? There are 3 main movements. You don't need to do everything at once, but when you understand the logic, it gets much easier to apply. First, reduce checking. You're used to consulting reality all the time. Open the account, check the statement, check if it changed. Feel that it didn't change. React to that. So the first movement is simple. Stop looking for proof all the time. It's not never looking again. It's choosing when to look. And when you look, not using that as a measure of what's working or not. I did it like this. Instead of checking the account 3 times a day, I started looking once. And when I looked, I'd remind myself, this here is a reflection, not a sentence. Seems small, but it makes a difference. Because every time you consult, you give authority. Second, separate fact from interpretation. When you look at reality, you see fact, but then you add interpretation. Fact, the account is in the red. Interpretation, I can't change this. It's not working. I'm not cut out for this. The movement here is training to separate. What happened? The account is in the red. What does this mean? Nothing beyond what it is. It took me a while to get this down, but after some time, it became automatic. I'd look at the scenario and think, okay, this is the fact. Now I won't add the story on top of it. Third, sustain independent state. This is the most important one. It's maintaining your internal position even without external validation. You want to feel different? Then sustain that state. Don't wait for reality to confirm it first. You want to decide like someone who already has clarity? Then decide that way, even without proof yet. This isn't pretending. It's stopping asking for permission. I remember in the beginning it felt weird, like I was forcing it. But it wasn't forcing, it was just stopping waiting for reality's authorization to feel capable. And look, you don't need to do all three at once. Start with one. Reduce checking. That alone changes the game. Now, what can you expect when you start doing this? I'll be straight. What changes first isn't reality out there. It's how you react to it. In the first few days, you'll notice you can look at the scenario without going into automatic despair. You look at the account, see it's tight, but don't feel that crushing weight from before. That's already change, and it's real. Over time, you notice the anxiety decreases, the urgency decreases. You stop constantly checking if it's changed, and this generates an emotional stability you probably didn't have before. And here's where it gets interesting. When you stop reacting to the present scenario as if it were a final sentence, you start noticing opportunities that were always there, but you didn't see because you were stuck in negative interpretation. Decisions get faster. You stop freezing up, stop waiting for a reality to give you permission, and then it seems like life moved faster, but it's not magic. You just stop delaying yourself. In my case, it took about 2 weeks to feel the emotional difference, and about 2 months to start seeing concrete change in financial life. It wasn't overnight, but it was consistent. And look, this isn't linear. There are days when you'll look at the present and feel the weight again. That's normal. The point isn't never feeling it again, it's not letting it command you. But there are some mistakes we make even understanding this, and these mistakes can sabotage the whole process if you don't know how to identify them. Mistake 1, confusing detachment with indifference. This is the most common. The person understands they need to detach, and then it becomes whatever. The account is in the red, whatever. The problem continues, whatever. But detachment isn't indifference. It's not stopping caring. It's stopping letting the scenario command your state. You still care. You just don't let current reality define how you feel, decide, or act. I fell into this mistake in the beginning. I thought detaching meant becoming an emotional robot. And then I was just avoiding feeling, not actually detaching. Mistake 2, forcing detachment. Another common mistake. You see you're reacting to reality and then try to force detachment like it's a rigid rule. Can't react, can't feel, can't think about this, and then you create even more tension because you're trying to control by force what should be a natural process. Detachment isn't internal struggle, it's gentle redirection. If you notice you're reacting, just acknowledge it. Don't fight with yourself. Just return to the state you want to sustain. Mistake 3. Using detachment as an excuse not to act. Some people use detachment to avoid doing what needs to be done. Oh, I detached. So now I don't need to chase anything. But look, detaching doesn't exempt you from acting. You keep doing, moving, making decisions. The difference is you're no longer acting driven by desperation. No longer acting with the weight of, if this doesn't work out, I'm worthless. If you notice you're stuck, justifying it with detachment, you just switch traps. So, where do you really start? First step, choose one area of life to start. Don't try to apply this to everything at once. Want to detach from financial reality? Start only with that. Want to detach from the relationship? Focus only on that. Because if you try to change everything at once, you'll get lost. Start with one thing, apply it right, and then expand. Second, use the minimum sequence. Observe what's happening. Separate fact from interpretation. and sustain the state you want to have for at least 24 hours. That's it. A 24-hour cycle. You apply, observe, adjust, and repeat. And when reality screams again, and it will scream, you don't ignore it. You just remember, this is context, not command. You look, acknowledge, and choose not to obey. If I were starting this over today, I'd do it exactly like this. One area, minimum sequence, 24-hour cycles. And you have everything you need now. You don't need to wait for the ideal moment. You don't need to feel ready. You start as you are and adjust along the way. Look, if you apply at least one of these movements, reduce checking, separate fact from interpretation, or sustain state without asking permission, you'll already be detaching from current reality in a way most people never manage. Now, if you want to move from understanding to actual results, really change your financial situation using this mechanism, the ebook in the description or pinned comment shows you exactly how to apply this until you see concrete change in the account. It's not just theory, it's the complete process I used to get out of financial stagnation and that I still use today. And tell me in the comments, which of these three things do you most need to apply right now? Reduce checking, separate fact from interpretation, or sustain independent state? I read everything and often get video ideas from there. Subscribe, because every week I post 3 videos breaking down manifestation, mindset, and money without empty talk. And if you know someone who's financially stuck trying to change their life, send them this video. Sometimes simple information completely changes how a person sees their own process. Now go, start as you are, and adjust along the way.